Hello and welcome to Tracy Mommy Reads. I am back again with another video. So today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a movie reaction, a movie that's in theaters. And the movie is called American Fiction. I had no idea that this was even based on a book. I like the premise of the movie, even before I knew that it was, adapted. And the book is called Erasure by Percival Everret. Anyway, what it's about essentially is there's an author, a Black man by the name of Thelonious Ellison. He goes by Monk because his first name, Thelonious, is a nod to the great jazz musician Thelonious Monk. So his friends and family call him Monk. But anyway, he has a PhD and he's very cerebral and literary, and takes writing very seriously, and his books are very cerebral reads, and I think they are fiction, but they're just kind of elevated literature, right? And he gets really annoyed because there's this woman who I think her name is Sonata or something like that, and she is becoming like all the rage in the book world for an urban fiction story that she wrote called We's Live in the Ghetto, or We's. And so he's trying to get his latest book, picked up to be published and all of that. And he's having a hard time. Meanwhile, this woman is just ascending with what he feels is basically trash, to him, and that it shows Black people in a horrible light, and it's pandering to white people and that kind of thing. So after a few drinks, one night he decides he's going to write a similar book. Okay, so he writes this book, and it's an urban fiction tale, but he just goes over the top with it, right? And lo and behold, after he sends it to his agent, manager, person, there's a publishing house that's just really excited about it, and they want to pick it up. And from there, it's crazy, the ascension of this book. So anyway, that's the premise of it. And like I said, I have not read the book, but I've been seeing like all the trailers and everything for the movie, and I thought that would be a perfect tie-in for for my YouTube channel that deals with books. Plus, I am an author, and it just seems like a good marriage of the two to be able to bring it to the channel to you guys. So I'll be back after I watch the film. I'm going to bring you guys along with me, and I'll let you know my thoughts. Okay, so I headed over to the Cinemark Theater about 10 miles away to catch the 10:25 a.m. showing, and there was like practically nobody in the theater. By the way, this movie is rated R. So I went to the concessions and got some popcorn before heading over to the theater where it was showing. And outside of the door, there was like a poster of the character, and you could see like the duality with this outline they have here. And then this is just like a quick scene from the movie where the character was upset that his book was in the African American section. That ending though, wow. Okay, so just finished watching the film American Fiction, starring Jeffrey Wright. Tracy Ellis Ross is in it, Leslie Uggams, Sterling K. Brown, Erica Alexander, absolutely love her, Issa Rae, and there are some other notable actors and actresses also in the film, but those are kind of like the main, players. So there's just so much to unpack here because it has a lot more depth than I originally thought. I thought it was going to be primarily about this guy and, what happens after he publishes this book, right? But in the movie, and again, I don't have anything to compare it to, but I am going to have to go now and read Erasure because I just want to see if they did it justice, because I really enjoyed the movie. It deals with stereotypes. It is complete satire. So if you go see it, go in knowing that, ahead of time. But also in the movie, because we're talking about a man who is obviously in his 50s, probably later 50s, mid to late 50s. And he is dealing with, he has two siblings, a sister and a brother. He is dealing with so many family issues. Their father has passed away, but the mother, she's kind of starting to descend into Alzheimer's. And it's that whole thing with these adult siblings trying to figure out, the best thing for their mother as she goes through this. Apparently their family must have had some wealth or were well-to-do, because all three siblings are doctors. Like, he's a PhD, his sister's an actual medical doctor, and his brother is a plastic surgeon. So, and in the movie, the majority of the film takes place at their beach house. And I don't know if it must have been in Martha's Vineyard. I don't know if it was in the Hamptons. But anyway, and then there's another thing where he meets this woman in the beach community, played flawlessly by Erika Alexander. I have always just loved her, and I'm so glad to see that she's kind of, I've seen her in more films lately. It had been a while since, like, when she was on Living Single. It seems like a lot of our faves from back in the day, it's so far and few in between that you see them in roles. But she was in this movie, and I feel like she did an outstanding job. She played his love interest, and she was an attorney, which I thought that was ironic, since she played Max the Maverick on Living Single. But so he was navigating a new relationship, his mother's illness, things going on with his siblings. And I will tell you that I was pretty shocked, because early in, a person who I thought was going to be a main character, like, they pass away. So there's character death in this movie that I couldn't even focus, like, for a minute, because I was like, wait a minute, how did that person die? What is happening here? So that's a slight spoiler. I won't tell you who or how, but and then there's also, just the idea of getting older and, reaching your goals and dreams, because he's been a writer for a very long time. I think he's also a professor. That's what really pays the bills, because none of his books have ever just, exploded in a way where he received any type of literary achievements or acknowledgments from, the community or his peers. And so when he writes this book that he initially calls My Pathology, like, instead of pathology with the PATH, he put path, PAFOLOGY. And, like I said, it was this story. It was like an urban story, and the vernacular, the dialogue, everything was street level, right? Literally. And there was a scene where, when he was writing, like, two of the characters from the book, like, he was in the background, like, typing on his laptop, and two of the characters in the story, like, were kind of playing out the scene, like, fully dressed, with sagging pants and gold chains and stuff. It was a father-son. And then they, when he would stop, one of them would look at him and go, so what am I supposed to say next? And it reminded me, I had a core memory unlocked. I was the biggest, like, one of the biggest fans of the Carol Burnett show back in the 70s, late 70s. I watched that show all the time. And there was one skit that she did on the show. Well, I don't know. She wasn't the person, like, the main person of the skit, but she would appear. I mean, it was her show. But a guy would be typing on a typewriter a story, and the characters would be acting out what he's saying, and this was before, like, autocorrect and all that stuff, or, so he would have to backspace and delete or whatever. You could hear the keys going. And let's say if he said, she flew into the room and sat on the couch. So, Carol Burnett and the other actors, whoever, she would waltz into the room and sit on the couch. Then he would go, no, that doesn't sound right. He'd backspace, she'd have to back out of the room. And then he'd go, she flew into the room and threw herself on the ground. Then she would come back and throw herself on the ground. So it was like this notion of actually seeing the characters moving. So when they had that scene in American Fiction, it took me back some decades. But the film, like I said, I thought it was very well done. I enjoyed it. I found it entertaining. All of the actors, they just blew me away. Sterling K. Brown, like, I want to say maybe one episode, and probably not the entire episode. I never got into the whole This Is Us, you know, the TV show. You know, I know there were some people who were like really wrapped up in that show, and I never got into it. But just based on some of the movies I have seen him in and his performances, it makes me want to go back and maybe revisit that series, if for nothing else, for him. He is just not afraid to go there in this movie and in other movies I've seen him in. He's truly an actor. You know, I feel like so many people, they could be playing themselves. You know, that they're so rigid and maybe the roles that they take or whatever. But it seems like he's always kind of out of the box in most of the films that I've seen him in. But anyway, so yeah, so the movie was really good, and I think one of the overarching messages that I got from the movie was that, especially number one, I'll say it for me as an author, it is frustrating sometimes to feel like you're writing a book that you think is entertaining and shows, you know, Black people, for me, because I write mostly about Black people, or even brown people, or any marginalized group or biopic, you know, person. Like, I try to show all my characters in the most positive light, and not because I'm trying to necessarily send a message, but I'm based on my reality of people I know, and to basically let people know that Black people are not a monolith. Like, there's some Black people who have never even been to the hood, right? Just like there's some white people. So they may have the same kind of appalling reaction if they see something that's a little bit more gritty or street level. And I just feel like that's kind of how a lot of times people of color are portrayed in not only the media, but it seems like the worst of the stories get broadcast on the nightly news, so that there's this worldwide pretty much feeling or representation of what they think Black people are, what people think Black people are, how we behave, especially if you don't have any Black friends or know anybody or don't have any neighbors, and you're getting all your information on Black people from the news. You're grossly misinformed. So I was kind of feeling his frustration a little bit in that vein, because when Issa Rae's character, you know, went to this book signing and read an excerpt from her book, it was trash. It was awful, as it was meant to be in the movie. And like, all these people of other different races were standing up like, oh, that's marvelous, and you've tapped into blah, 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 and tapped into that. And it's like, the majority of people, like Black people, probably could not relate to that book, you know? So, and there's this frustration sometimes that I feel, especially when like the urban books, you know, exploded on the scene. And me, because it seemed like at the same time that they kind of exploded on the scene, I had started writing, and I felt like it was hard for me to kind of find my audience. But I've overcome all that since. But that brings me to the other side of the coin as a reader. Okay. I can see how some readers, because I'm in this Facebook group with like 1 million women on Facebook, and it's primarily like, you know, women of color, but there does seem to be a lot of judgment in the book world, in the Bookstagram, the book talk world, towards people who do gravitate towards those stories. And there shouldn't be. People should be allowed to read whatever they want to read, whatever they find entertaining, whatever form of, you know, escapism, you know, because that's all it is at the end of the day, whether you can relate to it or not. I, you know, have read stories where that's not my world, but I was able to, you know, glean some understanding of what was going on and be entertained by those characters in that story. So, you know, it's kind of like I can see both sides of the coin. And it's funny because there was a scene where Monk he was like judging some books, you know, with a panel of other authors, and Issa Rae's character was one of them. And for the book that, you know, in his book that he wrote under a pseudonym, actually, the book that he wrote, that was an urban tale, he didn't use his real name. He used a name called Stagger Lee, which Stagger Lee, I'm gonna have to put a little notation. I don't know if that's like I don't know why I'm getting blues singer. Maybe it's a song about a person named Stagger Lee, but I'm gonna put a little note about that in the video, because as soon as I heard that or saw his name, I was like, where'd that come from? Where'd he get that from? But anyway. But anyway, she's, having this meteoric rise based on her urban book, and like his book is coming up behind hers, even though she doesn't know he wrote it. But she says that she felt like his book was pandering to, white people, and that it, showed black people in a negative light. And it's kind of like pot meet kettle, type thing. And, then it kind of woke him up to being like, people can read what they want to read. That wasn't the intent, and blah, blah, blah. So like I said, as a writer and as a reader, I can see how the work that is put out there, a lot of times you're judged on it, whether you're consuming it or you're the one that's putting it out. When at the end of the day, it's all just stories, especially in the fiction realm, right? It's all just things that have floated in our imagination that we've put pen to paper. Some people, may bring some realism into it if they, knew about a couple or their neighbors got divorced and then they happen to pen a story about divorce or something. Maybe you're inspired because you heard something, but, it's just imagine life without books, the sheer horror. So I say, writers write what makes you feel good and what you feel like, is needed by somebody out there that's reading. Or, like Toni Morrison says, there's a book that doesn't exist yet that you want to read, then you may have to be the one to write it. But yeah, because a big part too of the movie was after he did that book, totally, making a joke out of it, like not thinking about would pick it up. He just was venting his frustrations. Then a lot of money started coming his way. He needed money for his sick mother's care. Then they wanted to make it a movie. So in the end, it's like you end up selling out because it's all about what's in demand, because I will say as an author, and I've talked about this in other videos, it's a lot of work to write a book. It's not as easy as people may think. Maybe AI is easy for AI, but for a true writer, someone that really has a passion for telling a story, it's not as easy as you think. And to put out work that nobody is reading or it's not resonating with someone, it's heartbreaking. So I can see why he did some of the things that he did. But overall, I found the movie extremely entertaining. I don't think that it is actually playing in a lot of theaters. It's not on a lot of screens throughout the country. But if you are lucky enough to be able to get to a theater to watch it, I believe it came out last month, maybe like early December. So it's been out for a little while, and you know how quick things come to streaming. So if you can go and catch it in theaters, do yourself a favor. If you're an author or if you are a book lover, I feel like you're going to be able to see both sides and you're going to really enjoy the story. And if not, I guess mark your calendars, because I'm pretty sure by the end of next month or so, it'll probably be available on some streaming service. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like this video. And hey, let me know, have you seen American Fiction? Let me know what you thought about it in the comments. And if you have not already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and also take the time to do that as well. And be sure to share it with someone who you think might like my content. You guys have a great day, and I will see you next week.